Welcome to the morning after the botched 2023 elections. NINAS had in 2020, December 16 precisely, by way of the constitutional force majeure, advised against the journey to nowhere we all describe as elections 2023. It has come, it has collapsed, and everybody is confused about where to go next. NINAS is not confused. We had received torrents of inquiries, distress calls of, oh, what do you say about what's going on? But NINAS, as a matter of deliberate choice, as a matter of strategy, decided to maintain what in war is called radio silence in all the period from the 25th of February charade to the one of governorship. We've all seen how it's gone. And so we have come the morning after to address a number of specific constituencies, specific segments of society, segments of stakeholders, and to invite all, even those who made mistakes, even those who didn't listen. We'll be inviting all to the inevitable union reconstruction according to the template contained in the constitutional force majeure we deployed to address the Nigerian quagmire, but which those blowing siren in government house, controlled by the caliphate and the regional renegades from the south and middle belt, who all subscribe to the constitution that is the problem. We have seen what kind of democracy we can get from a constitution of apartheid. We can see now what kind of outcome that can come from a fraudulent arrangement, mandated by a fraudulent constitution, carried out by crooked people, including the contestants. All of those who went to contest election under the 1999 constitution are as crooked as that constitution. The INEC, that is the mediator, is as crooked as the contestants and the constitution. We have seen the outcome. But we have some people we must deal with differently from those crooked ones, the ones who are deceived. The young people who did not know that the constitution was the problem and therefore were goaded into believing that election will produce another set of leaders or some great leader that will pull them out of what they were seeing. They knew what they were seeing. They were seeing corruption. They were seeing killings all over the place. They were seeing impunity all over the place. They were seeing decaying infrastructure. They were seeing inequality, particularly in opportunities, for which reason they have had to flee to all other parts of the world, anywhere but Nigeria. But they didn't know where it was coming from. And those who were in a position to know, led by NINAS, were telling them that it is the constitution of Nigeria that is the problem. But there are some others whose whole thoughts are fixated in government house. They say, no, it's leadership. Characters like Professor Tommy, characters like Peter Obi, that they say constitution is not the problem, that it is leadership. Now we have gone to election mandated by that constitution, and we have seen the outcome. And so the first part of this address will go to those young people who have somehow coalesced into what is known as obedient movement. Everything that happened wrong in this election, including the declaration of somebody who obviously did not win, including the refusal to declare your candidate who won, with a good margin across the length and breadth of the country. The reason your candidate has not been declared is that there is an INEC sitting in Abuja. That same INEC sitting in Abuja is operating under the constitution that centralized the control of the electoral machinery, including for voter registration. In a federation, it should not be so that somebody sitting in one corner in Abuja and responsible for registration of voters across the length and breadth of Nigeria. So from the point of registration of voters, you saw how much you were excluded. Then to the PVC printing and distribution, you saw how lopsided, in which children of 7 and 8 years were being issued PVCs all the way into Niger Republic. But you have to close your business several times in pursuit of the same PVC in Lagos, Onitsha, Port Harcourt, Enugu. And so, if 50 million of you were supposed to collect PVC, the one issuing the PVC from that centralized position is able to deny 30, 40 million of you and give to the ones they chose. That's for PVC. The BVA that was deployed, that same centralized control was responsible for how BVA was programmed to function in your space, different from how it functioned in other spaces. It's all a matter of software. Let nobody think there's anything wrong with the technology behind BVA or the technology of PVC. Those technologies will have delivered, but for that centralized control. So let nobody deceive you into thinking that something went wrong with technology. No, it is the centralized control imposed by the constitution we are talking about that made it possible for people to sit in one corner of Abuja and make these things happen across the communities and the streets throughout the country. That's for BVA. Logistics. On the day of election, materials arrived in all the places they wanted the materials to arrive, 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock. But there are places where materials arrived 3 p.m., 1 p.m., in the midst of all kinds of running around. And so, while those who were going to vote for their own choice of candidates had every facility to begin in time with all their PVCs and BVA working, you are struggling. These are all happening because of the centralized control of electoral machinery under your constitution that put election as one of the 68 items on the exclusive list. Security, countrywide, is managed by the same people, such that in the places where they expect votes to go in a certain direction, they compromise the security. We saw when Tinubu's henchman, MC Olomo, was threatening people that if they voted, they would be carried out dead from the place. And we saw policemen that were with him supervising the brigandage. It is because of the centralized control of security that we saw most of what we saw that day. Again, centralized, constitution, exclusive list. The polling units that were created and distributed, we saw where INEC unilaterally shifted people to other polling units without informing them. And so you came to vote in the polling unit assigned to you, quite apart from the lopsided distribution of polling units, in which several polling units were allotted to some areas and very inadequate arrangements made for other areas. It's because of that same sitting in one location and controlling what happens in your locality. And so, even as lopsided as it is, you now come down to where you got to the polling unit to vote, and your name is not on the register there. And you have to go to the internet to find out where you've been sent to. And then there's no transport for the day. By the time you get yourself to locating where your name occurs to be able to vote, the day is gone. We've talked about PVC, BVA, logistics, security, polling unit, and so many other things. And so, at the end of the day, the collation, we saw what the law said about collation, the transmission of result, everything about the Electoral Act that was amended, I think was in 2022, it was to remove the human interference that now becomes rigging. When people have voted, count the votes in their presence. When you've counted, enter the result in their presence into a sheet. Use the BVA to capture what you've entered while they are still there. So in their presence, you capture, like you can do with your camera, and they all did with their cameras. You capture and dispatch to server that then goes to IREV, where the public can be viewing real time what is happening from across 176,856 or so polling units across the country. That meant if the law was followed by INEC, they would have, those results would have come even the same day. As voting was finishing, the result was coming to be seen. There will be no human interference from what transpired at the point of voting, where the party agents were present. That's what the law required. What did INEC do? After the first 7,000 or so that came in, they saw the pattern of results, they yanked off the server from receiving, what was coming from the field. Unfortunately for them, in yanking off the one of presidential, they allowed the other two for election that the same polling unit, the same time you vote for Senate and House of Representatives, and then the president, the other two came in, and the one of president did not come in. And so it is because there's a centralized control of that electioneering, the result transmission component of the electioneering, election management. The reason we are breaking these things down for you to see that there was a reason we said election cannot cure the problem we have. And this is just election, one out of 68 items that are on the exclusive list. When we open up investigation into what is happening with insecurity, the killings that are happening in southern Kaduna and in Plateau and all over the country, if we say, why is it happening? You will see that it is same constitution that centralized control over arms and ammunition into the hands of the federal government that is now controlled by the Fulani. Because what has happened to us is that what we call the federal government is actually the Fulani that have hijacked the defunct federation, the carcass of the defunct Federation of Nigeria. So you think there's a Nigeria that is being built. You do not know that there are invaders from across the Sahel, the Fulani, who have hijacked the carcass of what was the Federation of Nigeria into the unitarism, the thing they control from the center. And so this is just election. Security is in that same situation. Infrastructure is in that situation. That's why you don't have any roads or railways. Electricity is in that situation. Refineries are in that situation. Everything that is on that exclusive list is the reason your life is upside down where you are. And in going to vote on the 25th of February or the 18th of March for governorship, you were actually reinforcing all of this. You were voting to have things continue the way they were. The corruption you see is flowing from this centralized control. The oil and gas of Niger Delta that is now owned by people in Maiduguri and Jigawa is because of that constitution and the exclusive list that has oil and gas. It's no longer your property. The ports of Lagos, the ports of Port Harcourt, the bitumen in Ondo, the limestone in Benue, all the economic assets in the land are owned via that constitution by the people who control that federal government, that so-called federal government. It's an illicit federal government because we ceased to be a federation from the point the constitutions were toppled. And so what has happened now which you are all witnesses to, is that the controllers of that Nigeria, that one Nigeria, that caliphate-owned Nigeria, that unitary Nigeria, defined by this constitution, have managed to railroad you to come in to reinforce your own damnation, your own enslavement, your own bondage, your own killing, your own impoverishment. That's what you did in going to election under that constitution. And we shouted from the rooftops all through the time it was building up. We told the men of God in the land who were mobilizing for PVC, where is that PVC now in the outcome you have seen? You have validated the journey to renewing the life of that constitution. You can see the outcome. You've heard what the whole world said about the candidate that have been declared winner. But beyond that, apart from the drug and the illicit things that candidate, is known to have done, his second in command, his vice presidential candidate, who is at the center of what became Boko Haram, under that constitution still, if anything happens to that candidate today, it is the head of Boko Haram that will be sworn in as president. That is what you have voted for. That is what you have gone to validate. That is what you ignored the counsel to stop. That is a journey to death you have embarked upon. Now you want to cry. You went into a crooked process mandated by a crooked constitution. And you are crying about the crooked outcome. Not yet too late. The handover is supposed to be happening at the close of May. We are still in March. Ninas is calling out right now. Sovereignty belongs to the people from whom government derives all its powers and authority. And therefore, the question of election by which government is chosen is secondary. Your powers lie above. You are the ones hiring. Election is the mechanism for hiring the management of your enterprise. That enterprise is called Nigeria. You have embarked on a wrong journey of hiring another management at a time your enterprise has been hijacked by criminals who imposed this constitution. What we should do, what we must do, except we want to perish, what we must do, and remember, in the period immediately following the force majeure in 2020, sometime in 2021, we had gone out in a broadcast to say that if people refuse to listen, if the politicians, particularly the renegades, the political renegades of the South and Middle Belt, distributed across the political parties, PDP, APC, ABGA, Labour Party, Young People's Party, all of them subscribe to that constitution. But we told them that if we cannot listen to ourselves and stop the journey and go into transition to rework the damaged constitutional basis of Nigeria, that we will be waiting at the bridge to 2023. The fate of Nigeria will be decided on the bridge to 2023. If you want to find out what we said there, go to YouTube and research. Fate of Nigeria will be decided on the bridge to 2023. We are on that bridge right now. And you remember the domino 1, domino 2, in the enforcement mechanism for that constitutional force majeure. We reject the union of master and servant as defined by the constitution that centralized everything to strangers, renewed every 4 years by elections. That is the meaning of this domino 1 you see. The domino 2 is where, in rejection of that constitution that create that union of debt, we reject elections. And that elections will be brought down. We never hid our intentions to collapse the journey into election. That election has been collapsed. However it happened is business for another day. But as at this day, in March of 2023, the whole world can bear witness that no election, nothing that can be described as election, even by Nigerian standard, can be said to have happened. And so, the pillar of election in what you have seen is collapsed. The reason it's collapsed is because of the constitution, like I've explained to you, that centralized everything and has brought it to that collapse. We have to push harder for the collapse of that constitution to become manifest enough for everybody to realize that we have come to the end of the union of master and servant defined by that constitution. That is the enforcement of our force majeure. We started with enlightenment and sensitization. Then we went to mobilization. Today, we have activated the Domino 2, which is the enforcement. Domino 2 is activated. Let Pastor Enenche be told that Domino 2 has been activated. He has seen this illustration before. Let Pastor Paul Adefarasin be told that Domino 2 has been activated. He has seen it. Let it try Godalo. Let El Buba. All of those who were mobilizing everybody to go and get PVC, the Catholic bishops in Nigeria. We sat down with you. We told you you were inviting your flock to death in the election. The reason we say it was death you were inviting them to is that the process has now produced an outcome. By the time the swearing in is allowed to happen, if it's allowed, on the basis of what we saw on 25th of February, you would have been the one responsible for leading the people who should have been looking up to you for direction. You led them to slaughter by asking them to go to get PVC in a battle that required AK-47, in a battle God had already given us victory. All we needed to do all the while was to say, Ninas is right, the constitution is the problem, we must go to transition now to rework the damaged constitutional basis of Nigeria. We came to you, we pleaded with you. We explained to you. You chose to go to mobilize them to validate the journey to death. That's why they've arrived now. But it is yet early. If you will come with us now, look back at what had happened and declare the truth that everything that has gone wrong has happened because of the Constitution of Nigeria that centralized the control over all the processes into the hands of the people who have enacted what you have seen. And therefore, no further business to be tolerated. Not the swearing in, not the handover, nor formation of government based on the charade we saw. It must be transitioned now for the sole purpose of reworking the constitution, the damaged constitutional basis of Nigeria. Those who are talking about interim government for any other kind of purpose, oh, let INEC get it right. Upon which constitution? To do what? And there are some of us who are already gearing up. Some have gone to court. We're going to recover our mandate. Mandate to come and do what? To come and govern by this constitution that kill people, that impoverish people. For those who want to go and do all kinds of commotion, we saw it happen in Abiola time. Your mandate has been swallowed. You saw Mahmoud in broad daylight swallowing your mandate. That monster we were telling you about all the while, the constitution, that monster has swallowed your mandate. That monster is waiting for you with mouth wide open to come and recover the mandate. You enter into that mouth in pursuit of that mandate. Whether you went to court or you went to the streets, that monster will close his mouth. Some people's liberty will be compromised. Other people's lives will be lost because you are chasing after the mandate. But there's an alternative. What we are doing is to put that monster itself to death, that monster that is swallowing that mandate now. So you have a choice to go in pursuit of the mandate, like we saw in June 12th. Abiola had a mandate. For 1 year, they will not listen to him. Then people mobilized to go and recover mandate. Eventually, we saw how some of them ended up in prison, including the candidate. Eventually, we saw how some of them got killed on the streets of Lagos and elsewhere, including the candidate who died in Abuja later. Mandate, liberty, life, in that order. But mandate for what on this occasion in 2023 under 1999 Constitution? And so we invite you. We know that you want mandate recovery. That's one prescription. There are some that PDP say, oh, cancel for Iran. At the end of the day, somebody will win, will swear to defend and uphold that constitution as basis of going to assume power. The court may say, oh, after all said and done, let the two frontrunners go and recontest in the runoff. When they recontest, one of them will win, will swear to defend and uphold 1999 Constitution as basis of assuming power. So whether we go to recover mandate, or we go to rerun, or we go to runoff, the result is exactly the same. The winner will swear to defend and uphold the 1999 Constitution, and you are back to where you are running away from. But there's a fourth proposition, which we are inviting you to now. That fourth proposition is where Dinas is saying, let us acknowledge that this constitution is the problem that we need to solve ahead of every other thing. Not in electing who come and manage that union that is defined by that constitution. Let us go to transition now for the purpose of reworking the damaged basis of the Union of Nigeria. That is what we must do now, because if we don't, those who dragged us out into the election will manage it to somewhere, it will land in somebody swearing to defend and uphold that constitution. And if they set up an interim government for any other purpose, the type we are hearing that they are trying to do, let it be sounded clear, loud, to the whole world, that no interim government will be tolerated except for the purpose of reworking, express purpose. That is, it has to be announced upfront, according to the 5-point proposition in the Constitutional Force Majeure Proclamation of 16th December 2020. Those who want to gamble, whether it's soldiers that want to come and announce how they will go and hold the power a bit, and all these false prophets that are running their mouths all over the place, talking nonsense about what should follow, what will happen, who will be sworn in later. The union has collapsed. The election by which the constitution, they wanted to save the constitution that we have defeated. We have defeated that constitution. It is now delegitimized countrywide. Everybody acknowledges that that constitution is not basis, can no longer remain basis of union, and therefore had to be done away with wholesale, not business for National Assembly or anybody from executive branch. It is the owners and custodians of the sovereignty that will have to rework their relationships if they want to continue in any union. And so anybody who is being invited to come and hold the mantle for a little time, let Oshibajo listen to this carefully. Anything outside those 5 points of proposition in that Constitutional Force Majeure Proclamation that defines exactly what we'll be doing in that transition will not be acceptable. And let us be reminded that in that Force Majeure Proclamation, we indicated what we were going to do if the country refuses, the managers and operators of unitary Nigeria refuse to listen. The nationalities are going to reconsider their allegiance, their limited toleration of that constitution. Especially at this time where we saw the president of Nigeria defying the Supreme Court. We saw INEC defying the constitution. INEC is defying the constitution. The requirements to be for a winner to emerge are spelled out. You must have the overall number of votes. You must have a spread of 25% across at least 24 states. And you must have 25% of the Federal Capital Territory valid votes. INEC is seeing these provisions INEC went ahead to declare a winner that has not satisfied the constitutional requirement. And that means defying the constitution. And the president is sitting there watching them. The one who is supposed to be directing them, because INEC, as much as it's called independent, there's somebody that is the president, that is the one managing Nigeria, the one who's to be held responsible for whatever any of the agencies of government is doing, including INEC. And so, if the president is folding his arms and watching INEC defy the constitution, in declaring this result, INEC is defying the constitution, quite apart from the law that it already defied in transmitting result at its own time, almost 72 hours after the time stipulated by law. We don't want to talk about the brigandage of the moral side of the question about who beat up who and who threatened who and who carried ballot box. We're talking about constitution, we're talking about law, two different things, apart from what now transpired in fact. And so let it be clear, let it be made clear that we have a chance to go and rework the basis of the union by stopping this hopeless journey to nowhere. The botched 2023 election has brought us to where we must now acknowledge that the first order of business is to move to transition very quickly and work out what will happen. If anybody throws up any other thing, whatever the person sees will be his choice. Thank you for listening.